The sound of alien drums echoed through the massive arena, deep and heavy like the heartbeat of some giant beast. Thousands of alien women stood in the rows above, their strange glowing eyes fixed on one small figure in the center of the open space. The air was thick with the smell of burning incense, and the floor beneath him hummed with strange energy. David Carter was still trying to understand what had happened. One moment he had been walking through the ruined corridors of an abandoned space station. The next he was dragged here by tall alien women with strong arms and faces carved like stone. Now he was standing in the middle of what looked like some grand alien ceremony. The heat of the alien suns above made sweat run down his face, but the crowd's wild cheering made him feel both nervous and strangely proud. 4 towering alien women stepped forward, each almost twice his height. Their skin shimmered like polished stone, and their muscles were strong and tight beneath thin silver armor. Without asking, they grabbed David gently but firmly, lifting him high into the air. The crowd roared as his feet left the ground, the sound rolling over him like a storm. David tried to laugh, thinking maybe this was some kind of honor. The aliens seemed to be celebrating him. The chants grew louder, deep and rhythmic. The alien women carrying him moved in perfect sync, their steps heavy and slow, as if they were following some ancient tradition. He looked around, hoping to spot a human face, but saw only more alien women, their hair braided with silver threads and strange stones. Some looked at him with admiration, others with a strange kind of pity. The scent of flowers mixed with the incense, and petals fell from above, sticking to his clothes and skin. The women carried him toward the center of the arena, where a raised platform stood. Alien guards in black armor blocked every exit, their tall spears humming with strange blue energy. The crowd's noise was like a living thing, wrapping around him, filling his ears until he could barely think. David leaned toward one of the women holding him, hoping to ask what was going on. Her glowing eyes flicked to him, and she leaned closer, speaking in a language that somehow made sense in his head. "Enjoy this moment, human," she said, her voice low and calm. "It will be your last joy." A shiver ran through him. His heart began to beat faster. The cheering of the crowd no longer sounded friendly. The faces in the stands now seemed sharper, less warm, as if the joy was for something darker. The alien women reached the platform and stopped. The chanting from the crowd slowed until it became a single deep hum. The arena grew strangely silent. Even the air seemed to hold still. All eyes turned toward the far end of the platform, where a shadowed figure was stepping forward. She was taller than all the others, her long black armor carved with red glowing lines that pulsed like veins. A long cloak trailed behind her, and a crown made of dark metal rested on her head. Her eyes burned with a deep golden light. Her steps were slow, each one sending a small vibration through the platform. The crowd bowed their heads as one, except for David, who still hung in the air in the hands of the alien women. The figure stopped in front of him, looking him up and down. Her expression was unreadable. This was the first time David truly felt the weight of the situation, whoever this alien woman was. She held complete control here. The air around her felt heavier, as if gravity itself bent toward her. She raised one hand slowly, and the alien women lowered David so that his feet touched the platform. But their hands never left him. She spoke, her voice deep and steady. "You are the chosen vessel," she sighed. The words made the crowd murmur with excitement. David's mouth opened, but no words came. His mind raced. Chosen for what, he thought? Was this some strange alien reward, or something worse? The alien woman began to walk around him in a slow circle, studying every detail of his face, his clothes, even the way he breathed. Her gaze felt like it could see straight through his skin. "You will be taken to the sanctum," she said. "Your role will begin there." Her tone made it sound like there was no choice, no chance of refusing. The alien women holding him began to move again, lifting him into the air once more. The crowd's hum grew louder, almost like the sound of many drums far away. David tried to ask what the sanctum was, but none of them answered. Their eyes stayed forward, cold and focused. One of them whispered to another, thinking he could not hear, "He does not know yet what waits for him inside." David felt the hairs on his neck rise. Whatever this was, it was no honor, and it was far from over. The alien women carried David to the middle of the platform, their heavy boots making the ground shake with each step. The golden-eyed figure walked ahead of them, her long cloak sliding over the smooth black stone. The crowd remained silent, their heads bowed, as if afraid to meet her gaze. Only the deep hum in the air broke the silence, like a song too low for human ears. David felt every muscle in his body tense. The heat from the alien suns above burned his skin, yet a cold shiver ran down his spine. He tried to speak again, but the grip of the women holding him made it hard to breathe. They moved him forward until they stopped in front of a wide archway carved into the platform wall. The golden-eyed woman turned to face him. Her presence filled the air like a heavy weight pressing down. Even without words, she seemed to command absolute obedience. She raised one hand, and the alien women lowered David until his feet touched the ground, though their hands still gripped his arms firmly. She looked at him for a long moment, as if measuring his worth. Then she spoke, her voice deep and calm. "I am Queen Sereth of the Archessa," she said. "You stand here as the chosen vessel, and your time begins now." David swallowed hard. The title chosen vessel echoed in his head like a threat. He forced himself to speak, his voice shaking. Chosen for what? But the queen did not answer right away. Instead, she began walking slowly around him, each step deliberate, each movement filled with control. Her eyes never left him. The alien women holding him shifted their stance, their expressions blank. They seemed like statues carved from living stone, silent and unyielding. David glanced at the crowd, hoping for some sign of what was happening. But every alien woman in the stands kept her head bowed. The queen finally stopped in front of him. "Your body is strong, your mind still untouched by fear, but that will change," she said. Her words were not loud, but they carried through the entire arena. Every alien in the crowd seemed to listen more closely. David tried to pull away, but the women's grip was too strong. His heart pounded faster. The queen nodded to the guards standing near the archway, and the heavy gates began to open with a deep grinding sound. Beyond the gates was a long corridor lit by flickering red lights. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and twist when he looked at them. The air inside glowed faintly, as if alive. The queen motioned for them to move forward, and the alien women carrying him stepped into the corridor without hesitation. As they walked deeper, the sounds of the arena faded, replaced by a slow, steady pulse that came from somewhere ahead. The corridor narrowed, forcing them to move in single file. The stone beneath their feet was warm, and faint traces of smoke curled from cracks in the floor. David tried to count the steps, but the strange energy in the air made his thoughts hazy. The queen's voice echoed from ahead. "You will be taken to the sanctum, where the truth of your purpose will be revealed," she said. "Few have entered, and none have returned." Alien women carrying him remained silent, their breathing steady, their eyes fixed forward. David could feel their muscles tense each time the pulse in the air grew stronger. They reached a chamber at the end of the corridor. The walls here were covered with more carvings, showing tall alien women standing over kneeling humans. In the center of the room was a large stone platform, surrounded by burning braziers that filled the air with thick, sweet smoke. The queen stepped onto the platform, turning to face David. "This is the place where honor is given," she said, "and the price of that honor is paid." Her voice had no warmth, only certainty. David felt a rush of panic. He did not understand the customs of these people, but every instinct told him this was not a reward. This was a trap. The alien women carrying him began to chant, their voices low and steady. The sound vibrated through his bones. He struggled against their grip, but they held him easily, lifting him onto the stone platform and setting him down in front of the queen. The carvings on the walls seemed to shift again, now showing the kneeling humans being lowered into some kind of pit. The queen raised her hands, and the chanting stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before. She stepped closer to David, so close that he could see the faint lines of scars running down her cheeks. Her golden eyes glowed brighter. "You will walk into the sanctum as the chosen," she said, "and you will leave it as part of something far greater than yourself." David's mouth went dry. He wanted to ask what that meant, but before he could speak, the floor beneath the platform rumbled. The sound was deep and slow, like the growl of some enormous beast waking from sleep. The queen's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "It is ready for you," she said. The alien women tightened their grip on David's arms, pulling him toward another gate at the far end of the chamber. The smell of the smoke grew stronger, making his vision blur. The pulse in the air became a deep, steady drumbeat in his ears. As the gate began to open, David caught a glimpse of darkness beyond, and from within that darkness came a sound that froze him in place. A long, slow hiss, like the breath of something ancient and hungry. The alien women stepped forward without fear, carrying him toward the shadow, and David knew that whatever waited beyond those gates would change everything. The air beyond the gate was heavy and strange. It carried the smell of metal, fire, and something older that David could not name. The alien women carrying him stepped forward with slow, powerful strides, their boots striking the black stone road with the sound of a steady drum. They moved into a wide-open street. The walls on each side were made of tall alien buildings, their shapes unlike anything human. Some curved upward like spirals of bone. Others leaned inward as if trying to touch each other across the road. Strange glowing plants clung to the walls, their pale light casting soft shadows on the alien faces that peeked out from doorways. The crowd here was different from the arena. The alien women in the streets did not cheer. They watched in silence, their glowing eyes following every movement. David noticed how some stepped back as the procession passed, as if afraid to be too close. The women carrying him kept their gaze forward, ignoring everything around them. Petals fell from somewhere above, floating down like pieces of red and gold fire. They landed on David's hair and shoulders, sticking to the sweat on his skin. For a moment it almost felt peaceful, until his gaze drifted upward to the balconies, where alien children stood watching. Their expressions were not joyful but sad. The procession turned a corner, and David's stomach tightened. Hanging from the walls ahead were rows of cages. Each cage held a figure inside. The shapes were easy to recognize. All were male. Some human, some alien. They were thin and pale, their eyes dull. Some looked at David with weak curiosity, others with fear. David tried to speak, but the woman carrying his left arm tightened her grip. His ribs ached from the pressure. The sight of the cages burned in his mind. The prisoners wore no armor, no signs of battle. They looked more like offerings waiting for something. As they passed, one prisoner reached through the bars with trembling fingers. His voice was barely a whisper. "Run," he said. Before a guard slammed the cage with the end of her spear, the sound echoed through the street like a warning. The road began to slope upward. The city behind them grew smaller, and ahead the buildings thinned until there were none. Only a wide stretch of black stone leading toward something massive in the distance. David saw it clearly now, a gate taller than any building he had ever seen. Its surface was covered in carvings that shifted when he blinked, as if alive. Each carving showed figures, tall alien women and small human shapes, but the scenes twisted in impossible ways. One showed a human lifted high in victory. Another the same human being lowered into a pit of darkness, the alien women carrying him slowed as they approached the gate. The air here felt heavier, and a faint vibration ran through the ground. The sound of the drums was gone now, replaced by a deep hum that came from the gate itself. Guards in black armor stood on each side, their spears taller than David and tipped with glowing blue crystal. Their eyes followed him without expression. When the queen appeared behind them, the guards knelt, and the great gate began to open with a slow grinding roar. The space beyond was darker than the city streets. The ground seemed to drink the light, and the walls on each side rose high and smooth. No plants grew here, no voices spoke. Only the sound of the alien women's boots and the steady hum of the place. David felt a knot in his chest. The road stretched forward into the shadow, and somewhere ahead was the sanctum the queen had spoken of. The word itself made his skin crawl. He imagined a throne room, a prison, maybe even a place of sacrifice. None of the images felt safe. They passed through the gate, and it closed behind them with a sound like a deep sigh. The silence that followed was unnatural. He could hear the faint sound of his own breathing, the rustle of the alien women's armor, and nothing else. The path led upward again, curving slowly until it reached another wall carved from the same dark stone. This wall had no gate, only an opening shaped like a tall triangle. Its edges glowed faintly, casting thin lines of red light across the ground. The alien women carrying him did not pause. They stepped through the opening, and the temperature changed instantly. The air was warmer, heavier, and each breath felt thick. Inside was a vast courtyard, empty except for a series of black stone pillars rising like broken teeth from the ground. David glanced around, trying to understand. But the alien women kept moving. Their path took them between the pillars, and he realized each one had marks. Long, deep scratches, as if something huge had tried to claw its way out. At the far end of the courtyard was another structure, larger than anything so far. Its shape was jagged, its walls covered in those shifting carvings. The top disappeared into the shadow above, and from somewhere deep inside came a faint, steady thump, like the beat of a giant heart. The queen's voice echoed from behind them, calm and certain. "The sanctum waits," she said, "and the hunger within is patient, but never sleeps." David's mouth was dry. His eyes darted between the alien women holding him and the massive building ahead. Whatever lay inside was the reason for the cages, the silence, and the strange honor they claimed to give him. He could feel it in the air, pressing against him like a weight. As they crossed the courtyard, the thumping grew louder, and with it came a whisper in his mind. Not in any human voice, but something deeper, older. It spoke no words he knew. Yet somehow he understood one thing clearly. It had been waiting for him, and it would not wait much longer. The black structure loomed ahead like the shadow of a mountain. Its walls shimmered faintly as if the stone itself were breathing. Every step toward it made the air feel heavier, as though the place itself was pulling them in. David hung in the grip of the alien women, their powerful hands unshaking, even as the ground beneath them trembled with each thump from inside. The queen walked just behind them, her presence filling the courtyard with silent authority. Her golden eyes never left the massive gate in front of them. The gate was not like the one at the city wall. This one was alive, or at least it felt alive. The surface rippled like dark water, even though it was made of stone. Strange symbols crawled across it, shifting into shapes David almost recognized. Before twisting into something else, he blinked, and the shapes seemed to lean toward him, whispering in voices only his mind could hear. 2 alien guards stood on either side. Their armor was thicker than any he had seen so far, and their spears glowed with a deep red light that pulsed in time with the thumping from beyond. Neither guard moved, not even to breathe. Yet David felt their eyes following him. The women carrying him stopped a few paces from the gate. The queen stepped forward, raising her hands slowly. Her voice rang out in a language older than anything David had heard. The sound rolled through the courtyard like a wave. Each word seemed to echo not just in the air, but inside his skull. The gate responded. The surface shivered, and the symbols brightened until they burned like fire. The ground rumbled harder now, dust falling from the walls around them. The alien women holding him did not flinch. Their faces stayed fixed forward, their grips like steel. With a low groan, the gate began to open, not outward or inward, but upward. Sliding into the shadow above, the sound was deep and grinding, like the earth itself was being torn apart. As the gap widened, a rush of hot air spilled out, carrying the smell of smoke, ash, and something far less pleasant, a smell that made the back of David's throat tighten. Beyond the gate was a vast chamber, lit only by faint red glows from unseen sources. The floor disappeared into shadows on both sides, and the walls seemed to stretch up forever. In the center was a single path of black stone leading forward. And far ahead David saw the outline of something massive waiting in the dark. The queen motioned for them to enter. The women carrying him obeyed without a word. Stepping onto the black path, the heat inside was worse than anything outside. Each breath felt like swallowing heavy air. His skin prickled and sweat ran down. His neck and back, they moved slowly, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. David's eyes kept drifting to the shadows on either side of the path. Shapes moved there, large and slow, never fully stepping into the faint light. Sometimes he thought he saw eyes, huge and pale, blinking at him from the dark, but when he tried to focus they were gone. The thumping grew louder, now joined by a low, steady rumble that made the stone underfoot vibrate. It felt less like walking into a building and more like walking into the belly of some giant creature. Halfway down the path, the queen stopped. She turned to face David, her voice calm yet sharp. "You are close to the heart of the sanctum," she said. "When you stand before it, you will understand why you were chosen," her words carried. No kindness, only finality. David wanted to demand answers, to shout that he had no part in this, but the heat, the smell, and the weight in the air pressed the words back down his throat. The alien women resumed walking, their steps perfectly in sync. Each one brought him closer to the massive shape ahead. As they neared the end of the path, the red light grew stronger, revealing the front of a colossal stone altar. It rose high above their heads, carved with the same twisting symbols as the gate. Only here the symbols were deeper, carved so sharply they seemed to bleed faint streams of light. The altar's surface was flat and wide, big enough to hold several men. At its center was a circular opening, and from that opening came the steady thumping. The sound was so close. Now it seemed to pulse in David's chest. The women carrying him stopped beside the altar. The queen stepped forward, placing both hands on the stone edge. She bowed her head for a moment, then turned back toward him. "Beyond this altar lies the chamber of the hunger," she said. "It is the oldest thing in our world, and it has waited too long." David's stomach twisted. The queen's words were not a warning, they were a promise. The alien women began to chant, their voices deep and resonant. The sound seemed to make the air vibrate, sending shivers down his spine. From the circular opening, a breath of hot wind escaped. It carried a whisper that slid into his mind, cold and ancient. The voice spoke in a language that had no words, yet he understood its meaning. It welcomed him, and it promised that soon he would belong to it completely. The queen raised her hand, and the chanting stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. The only thing left was the thumping, slow and patient, as if the thing below was measuring his heartbeat against its own. The queen's golden eyes caught the red light and glowed brighter. "Take him down," she said. The alien women tightened their grip and began to move toward a set of stairs spiraling down along the side of the altar. The heat rose with each step downward, and the shadows around them seemed to close in. David knew with absolute certainty that whatever waited at the bottom was alive, and it was waiting for him. The air grew hotter with every step down the spiraling stairs. The stone beneath David's feet was warm, and the walls glowed faintly as if light was trapped inside them. The alien women carried him without slowing, their breathing steady despite the heat pressing against them like a heavy blanket. The queen followed close behind, her armor shining dimly in the red light from below. The thumping sound was no longer far away. It was close now, deep and steady, like a heartbeat, the size of a mountain. Each pulse seemed to shake the stairs, sending tiny cracks of dust falling from the walls. David's skin was slick with sweat, but the shiver in his spine was not from the heat. As they reached the bottom, the stairs opened into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling was lost in shadow, and the air shimmered as if the heat was bending the space itself. In the center of the chamber was a pit, wide and perfectly circular. Its edges were lined with carvings that glowed the same deep red as the symbols above. The women carrying him walked toward the pit, their steps in perfect rhythm. David's eyes were drawn to the carvings. They showed scenes of alien women standing before the pit, offering something, sometimes weapons, sometimes treasures, sometimes living creatures. In every scene, the thing being offered vanished into the darkness. The queen walked ahead of them, stopping at the pit's edge. Her golden eyes reflected the light rising from below. "This is the heart of our world," she said. "The ancient hunger lives here, and it is the source of our power, our strength, our survival." Her voice was calm, almost reverent. David's pulse quickened. "And what does that have to do with me?" he asked. His voice cracked, but it carried in the quiet space. The queen's gaze turned to him, sharp as a blade. "The hunger feeds not on flesh alone," she said. "It feeds on the essence, the life force, the soul energy of those rare enough to hold it in great measure. You, human, carry more of it than any we have ever found." Her words hit him like a physical blow. He shook his head, struggling in the alien woman's grip. "I'm not giving anything to your monster," he said. His voice shook with fear and anger. But the women holding him didn't react. The queen stepped closer, her voice low but unshakable. "Without the hunger, our world would wither. Our people would fall. Your sacrifice is not cruelty, it is honor, and it will keep our empire alive for another 1,000 years." David's heart hammered against his ribs. His mind screamed at him to fight, but the pit drew his eyes. Inside the darkness something moved, slow and enormous. A faint glow traced the curve of a massive body, scales that shimmered like whetstone. Then a pair of golden eyes opened, larger than any David had ever seen. The voice that filled his head was not the queen's. It was deep and layered, like many voices speaking as one. At last it said, "The one who carries the brightest flame." The words burned in his mind, filling it with a heat that was not from the chamber. David clenched his teeth. "Get out of my head," he thought. But the voice only chuckled, a sound like stones grinding together. "You cannot resist, little human. You will be mine, and through you I will be strong again." The alien women lowered him until his feet touched the stone near the pit. Their grips did not loosen. The queen raised her hands, and the chanting began, low and slow. The sound rolled through the chamber, vibrating in David's bones. The hunger's body shifted, and the heat surged. The air felt heavy, pressing against his chest. He struggled harder, but the alien women were unmovable. The queen stepped aside, leaving him facing the pit directly. The voice returned, softer now, almost gentle. "Do not fight. It will be over quickly, and you will become part of something eternal." David's stomach twisted. His mind was a storm of fear, confusion, and fury. He thought of the prisoners in the cages, of the children watching from the balconies, of the silent streets. He realized this had been happening for longer than he could imagine, and he was just the next in a long line. The queen's chanting voice rose above the others. "Step forward," she commanded. The women holding him obeyed, forcing him closer to the pit's edge. Heat rolled up from below, carrying the smell of fire and something ancient and rotting. David's toes were at the very edge now. The darkness below seemed to pulse with life. The hunger's massive head rose slowly, scales scraping against the stone. Its eyes locked on his. The sight froze him in place. The voice filled him again. "I have waited too long. Do not make me wait more." The queen lowered her hands, signaling the moment had come. The women prepared to push him forward, and David's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to move, to run, but there was nowhere to go. And then, just before the push came, something strange happened. A flash of light appeared far above. slicing through the shadow. It was small but bright, and it made the hunger's eyes narrow. David's gaze shot upward, and for the first time since entering the sanctum, he felt something he thought was lost, a spark of hope. The beam of light from above cut through the thick heat like a blade. It shimmered in the dusty air and struck the pit directly. The hunger recoiled slightly, its massive head tilting away from the sudden brightness. The alien women froze for a moment, their hands still gripping David, but their eyes fixed on the light. From somewhere high above came a sound like metal grinding against stone, followed by a deep hum. The queen's golden eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "Ignore it," she ordered. "The offering must be made." But the chanting around the chamber faltered, some of the women glancing upward nervously. David's eyes locked on the light. His heart surged with a desperate thought. Maybe someone was coming. Maybe he was not alone in this nightmare. The light grew stronger, spreading across the chamber walls, making the glowing carvings flicker like they were alive. The hunger shifted. Again, its massive coils scraping against the pit walls. The heat grew sharper, almost painful against David's skin. The voice in his mind returned, more irritated now. "Do not think your saviors can reach you. They will fall as all have fallen before." David gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand taller, even as the alien women tried to push him forward. "I'm not your food," he muttered under his breath. His words might have been quiet, but the hunger seemed to hear them, and it let out a low growl that shook the air. Above, the grinding grew louder, and a second beam of light broke through the shadows. This one hit the chamber floor near the queen, who stepped back quickly. Her expression was no longer calm but tense, as if she knew something she had not told the others. Then came the sound of something heavy striking stone. A figure dropped from above, landing in a crouch near the edge of the pit. Dust swirled around them, and when it cleared, David saw a human in strange armor, dark silver with glowing blue lines running along the plates. A helmet hid their face, but their voice was clear. "Step away from him." The queen laughed coldly. "You are too late," she said, raising her hand in a gesture. The alien women tightened their grip on David, but the armored figure moved with sudden speed, drawing a weapon that hummed with energy. A bright arc of light sliced through the air, cutting the arms of the two women holding David, not killing them, but breaking their grip. David stumbled forward, gasping as the heat from the pit washed over him. The armored figure caught his arm and pulled him back. The hunger roared, a sound like an earthquake inside the earth. Its coils surged upward, massive and glistening. Scales larger than shields shimmered with wet heat. Its golden eyes burned like twin suns, and the voice in David's head was no longer calm. "I will not be denied." The armored figure shoved David behind them and raised their weapon. Energy burst from it in a crackling beam, striking the hunger's head. The creature reeled but did not retreat. Instead, it lunged forward, its maw opening wide to reveal endless rows of jagged teeth. Heat and stench poured from its breath. The queen shouted something in her own language, and the alien women began to move, circling the intruder. Their movements were swift, their spears lowering. David looked around wildly for a way out. His eyes found the stairs leading upward, but they were far, and the ring of alien warriors stood between him and escape. The hunger's massive head swung toward the armored figure, and its body tensed to strike again. The figure moved fast, darting to the side and slashing at one of its coils. Sparks flew where the blade connected, but the scale was too thick to cut deep. The hunger's tail lashed out, striking the floor so hard it cracked the stone. David ducked, barely avoiding the flying debris. The heat was growing unbearable, and the air was thick with the scent of burning stone. The hunger's voice boomed inside his skull again. "You are mine, human. No light, no blade. No savior will change this." But David was no longer frozen. He could feel adrenaline pushing away the fear. He saw the queen watching the fight with her, hands raised, her lips moving in another chant. The carvings along the pit edge began to glow brighter. And the hunger seemed to grow stronger with each pulse of light. The armored figure saw it too, and shouted, "It's feeding on the symbols. Break them." Without thinking, David grabbed a loose piece of stone from the cracked floor and smashed it against the glowing carvings nearest him. The light dimmed slightly, and the hunger hissed in his mind. The alien women nearest him lunged, but David swung the stone again, shattering another section of the carvings. The hunger's body shuddered, and the heat weakened for a moment. The armored figure took the chance to leap forward, striking the creature's head with a powerful blow. The queen screamed, her voice filled with rage. "Stop him," she commanded. But the alien women were hesitating now, glancing at the dimming carvings as if unsure. The hunger's roar echoed again, but this time there was pain in it. David smashed another carving, the glowing lines breaking apart like glass. The hunger's coils writhed violently, shaking the entire chamber. The armored figure turned to him, their voice urgent. "Keep going, it's working." The queen rushed toward David herself now, her golden eyes blazing. She raised her spear to strike, but the armored figure intercepted her, their blades clashing with a sound like thunder. Sparks lit the air between them. David struck another carving, then another, each blow making the hunger's roars grow weaker. The heat faded little by little, and the light in its eyes dimmed. The pit seemed less alive now, more like a hole in the earth than a living thing's lair. Still, the fight was far from over. The hunger's voice, though weaker, hissed in his head. "You cannot kill me, human. I will wait, and I will rise again." David gritted his teeth, raising the stone one more time, knowing that if he stopped now, there would be no second chance. The chamber shook as if the mountain itself was breathing. Dust fell from the high stone ceiling, drifting like pale snow through the golden light. David's hands were sore and bleeding, but he did not stop. The carvings around the pit were almost gone, their glow now weak and broken. The armored figure and the queen clashed again and again. Each strike rang out like a bell in the hollow chamber. The queen moved fast, her golden eyes blazing, but the figure was faster. Each time their blade met, sparks lit the air, and the sound made the alien women flinch. The hunger's coils thrashed inside the pit, smashing against the walls. Chunks of stone fell away, crashing into the molten heat below. The smell was sharp and heavy, like burnt metal. Its voice hissed in David's mind. "You cannot end me. You can only delay me." David ignored it, smashing another section of the carvings with the broken stone in his hand. The light dimmed again, and the hunger let out a roar that rattled his bones. The alien women looked uneasy now, their circle breaking apart. Some lowered their spears, unsure if they should fight or flee. The queen noticed their hesitation and shouted in her own language, her voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. The women tensed, ready to strike again, but before they could, the armored figure slammed their shoulder into the queen. Knocking her back, she hit the floor with a hiss of pain. David took the chance to rush to the last stretch of carvings. His legs felt heavy, his chest burned, but he knew this was the only way. Each swing of the stone sent sharp pain through his arms, but he did not stop. The carvings cracked and shattered, each one breaking the connection between the queen and the hunger. The hunger's head rose higher, massive and black against the golden light. Its scales shimmered, but its eyes were no longer blazing suns. They were dimmer now, like fading embers. Still, its voice was loud in David's mind. "You will regret this, human. I will remember you." The armored figure dodged a spear thrust from one of the alien women and shouted to David. "The last one. Break it now." David turned and saw it. The final glowing carving, larger than the rest, pulsing like a heartbeat. It was carved deep into the stone at the very edge of the pit. He ran to it, but the queen was already moving. Her spear flashed, aiming for his chest. David dove to the side, the spear scraping against the stone where he had stood. The armored figure was on her in a heartbeat, their blades slashing down. The queen twisted away, but the blow cut deep into her side. Her scream filled the chamber. David leapt toward the last carving. The heat from the pit hit him full in the face, making his vision blur. He lifted the stone high and brought it down with all his strength. The carving cracked, a bright flash of light bursting from it. The hunger's roar tore through the air, louder than anything before. The chamber shook violently, the walls groaned, and cracks spread across the floor. The pit's heat faded so fast that David felt the sudden cold bite into his skin. The hunger's massive body writhed, its coils twisting in pain. Its voice screamed in his mind. No, and then there was silence. The queen staggered back, her golden eyes wide in disbelief. The armored figure struck her weapon from her hands. The spear clattered to the floor, and she fell to her knees. The alien women lowered their weapons completely now, their faces pale. David backed away from the pit, his legs weak. The molten glow below was gone, replaced by darkness. The hunger's body seemed to sink, fading into the shadows, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but an empty hole. The armored figures stepped to David's side, their breathing heavy. "It's over," they said. Their voice calm now, but David could not shake the feeling that it was not. He looked at the pit, at the darkness that now seemed too still, too quiet. The queen laughed suddenly, even through her pain. "Foolish human," she hissed. "You have not killed it. You have only sent it back to sleep. It will wake again, and when it does, it will come for you first." The armored figures' hand tightened on their weapon. "Then we'll be ready," they said. But David could hear the weight in their voice. They knew the queen was not lying. A deep rumble echoed from somewhere far below. Just for a second, then silence returned. The alien women moved slowly toward the chamber exit. Their heads bowed. The queen was taken with them, her golden eyes never leaving David until she was gone. David stood there, his hands still shaking. He looked at the armored figure. "Who are you?" he asked. The figure hesitated, then reached up and removed their helmet. A woman's face appeared, pale and sharp, her eyes cold but steady. "Someone who has fought the hunger before," she said. They walked together toward the stairs. The chamber was falling apart behind them, stones tumbling into the pit as they climbed. David looked back one last time. He could swear he saw something move in the darkness, a flicker of gold far below. When they reached the surface, the cold night air hit him like a wave. He took a deep breath, the first clean breath in what felt like forever. The armored woman looked at the horizon and said quietly, "This was only the beginning." David felt it too. The hunger was gone, but its shadow still lingered, somewhere in the dark beneath their feet, waiting.